Hello and good evening, guys. Hope you have been great. So today we're gonna continue and get to understand a few things on formulas and functions. When you are getting to dive into Excel, when you start working with it to bring some beautiful summaries, you need to understand how you can work alongside some of the formulas we have here. So in this lesson, we're going to do some introduction to formulas and functions, understand some basics on how we can manipulate some text, and also an introduction to some of the top Excel functions like the count sum. You can also try to look up values using the VLOOK and the index match functions, and also array formulas. Array formulas are really good when you're trying to dig deeper and deal with some concrete complex data, and it's gonna help a lot. So without wasting time, let's just quickly jump into here I have a preset of some of the formulas here. We're gonna do some introduction to, and some of the functions also. Now suppose we have a list where you have some numerical values. Let's illustrate how they can form some addition using Excel. Let's say here you have maybe 10, and in the I hope you remember how to reference cells. Like in this case, the value 10 is in B1, and the next value 5 will be in C1. So whenever we start, we input a formula or a function in Excel, we must start with the equal sign, and then we can now add the two numbers. Now we can reference the cell, which is B1, using that addition operator to C1. And when you click enter, we have our results. Now remember here, we just reference the cells. So if I change maybe C1 to something like 6, see, it will affect the total outcome. So it is constantly being updated. Subtraction, the same thing. Maybe I can say something like maybe 9, and the other one we have 3, and then I say, always remember to start with the equal or you won't get any results. Suppose I say maybe 9 minus 3. Yes, I'll get some results, but whenever I change something like here, there's no update because I use the direct figures. So it is good to use cell referencing. So we can say that is B2 minus the contents of C2, right? And that is 5. We can also try to multiply. Let's we have the value of 3 and 5 here. We can also try to enclose this in the brackets. Excel allows for that. And C3. Whenever you're using a brackets, it can help when you want to bypass the Excel precedence. You can go and understand more about precedence so that you see which operators come before which. Now you can also do it direct without including that, which is B3 and added to C3. I mean multiply to get the results. If you don't want to keep typing the cell reference, let's say you have 10 here, you have 5 here, you can now just select that cell and then use the division operator. And there, you get your answer. Now suppose you want to sum. You can sum, let's say you want to sum the contents of cell B1 through B4. We can actually sum individually by saying cell that plus cell this plus cell this plus cell this, and we get our value. But you see, this, if you have a long list, this will be tedious. That's where we introduce our first function. So to get to this result, instead of using these long and tedious means, we can actually use the sum function, sum, and you realize whenever you start typing, you'll see some suggestions of functions here. We have the sum if, sum product, sum squared, and other functions. So it can give you suggestions whenever you start. So you have to be keen which one you want to use, and if you want to autocomplete the function, you can just scroll down to the function you want and then press the tab. Right now you can actually, if you remember from our last lesson, we can select B1, that the range we want, through B4, right? And you have the same results. Same thing, let's say you want to add bab using the function, you can just come and select that, then press shift all the way to the where you want, and you have selected range, and then enter. You still have the same thing. Now let's say you want to get the minimum value from that. You can Excel has an inbuilt minimum function, also have the maximum. So let's say we just want to have the minimum of whatever we have above, and say minimum value, let's see what it brings, and then we select that range. See, in this case, from B1 to B5, our minimum value is 3. So what you realize is that our formula here has returned the minimum value from that range. So if we want, let's say, for our formula to return the maximum value from that range, we can just use the maximum function and select from B1 to B5. We want, from this list, we want to return the maximum value, and you'll see we have returned 32, which being the highest value in that particular range. So let's say we want to count, and you have to understand the difference between sum function and count function. Sum will sum the values of that cell, and count will count the cell occupied, the numerical cell occupied. It's important to know that. So if we want to count how many cells we have from this range up to here, we can just use the count function and select from cell B1 through B7, and we see we have 7. And if you want to understand if you have done the right thing, you can just look at the bottom of your Excel workbook. You can see some automated Excel results here. It gives you an average of whatever selection you have, a count of that, and a sum of whatever you are selected. Now that's how you're gonna count that. But let's say you had values that are not numerical, they're characters. You have a list of names and you want to count. You cannot use this function. This function only works in numeric values. And when we want to use maybe and count such a list like this, which contains words, we use this function count all. So if we say count A, and maybe select from A1 to A8, we want to count the cells, you see, brings us 8. But let's say we wanted to, if we want to edit the formula and try, remember what I said last lesson when we were talking about if you want to edit the contents of the cell, you have to double click to enter the cell in order to edit. So if we double click here, and let's say we wanted to remove that and stick with count A, you see it turns 0 because it doesn't work on characters. So if you want to work on words, we just have to use the count a function. Count a function, and let's say we need an average from whatever we have above. An average, we also use the average function. The beauty of Excel is that the function names are so easy that they just give you what you want. So if I want to get the average through cell B1 to B9, I'll use the average function and select the range I want, and it will give me an average. Remember, when maybe you are trying to proof check if maybe you somewhere correct, you can select that range and try to quickly look here at the bottom, see what Excel has for you on these quick results here, and you see the average here is the same as the average here. Let's say you want the median. You all remember the median is the middle. Let's say we want to select from there to there and get the median, which is 5. So let's say also try to get the median above here. Let's say you want to get the median from the above list. From the median up to, let's say, there, you want to get the median, you get 9. You get 9, right? When you want your median. And yes, you can also get mode. You also have the mode function. Yeah, you just try and work around these functions and understand what they do. Also, you can also get the mode from your list. Yeah, you see, that is the mode. And these functions actually work mostly on they actually work on numerals. Yeah, so that's some of the basic functions that you need to know for Excel. And let's quickly do an introduction to the concatenate function. This is a function that actually joins two values together. An example, we might want to have a list here. Pardon, not arrange this because of illustration purposes. Maybe if I can quickly use this space for illustration. Let's say we have my name here on two different columns. So I want to join F1 and G1. To concatenate is to combine. You can use the function. It actually has a function, the concatenate function, and then you can now not convert. It's concatenate function here, and then you can now select that and this. Now and select that and this one. Wait a minute. Actually we have selected as a range. That's not the case. We should be selecting that, then use the comma to separate the two, and like that. Now we have concatenated here, but you realize these words are so close by, right? So let's say we just want to have a smart word that is maybe separated by space. So we can still go ahead and use that function, select that one, comma. Now before we select the next word, we can use double quotes, have space in between, and then select the next cell. In this case, you realize that we have space here. Let's try to make it cleaner by standing there. Now if you compare the two here, the first one we have used the same function, but the first one, if you look at the formula bar here, the first one it's not actually separated by the double quotes, but if you look at the second one, there's something we have done here, this space, so that we can have a clean summary like that. Good. Now we continue to the if. The if, these are a conditional. these are condition. Excel has, you can create some conditions in your, maybe you are working on something and you want something to happen if something is possible. So let's look at an example. If maybe this cell, if cell B11 is less, let me say is less, remember the operators. If cell B11 is less than cell B10, now what value do we want it to print out if it is true? We can put that in a double quote. You can say if cell B11 is less than B10, you can say cell B11 is maybe less, right? And what value to print if it is false? I mean, we can say let it print cell B11 is greater. So in this case, let me try and make it clearer. It has printed out cell B11 is less. So if you look at B11, look at the condition we have. If cell B11 is less than B10, this is what is being printed out if that is true. So let's look at cell B11. It's actually less than this. So what if we had a higher value, let's say 13 on cell B11 and hit enter? You'll see it will change to cell B11 is greater, because the condition is being executed here. The first one, it checks if cell B11 is less than B10, and cell B11 is actually 13 and cell B10 is 12.6. So if you realize cell B11 is not less than B10, it's actually greater. So the first condition, the first statement to be printed out is cell B11 is less if only it were true, but now it is false. It prints out the next statement. That's a good example of an if statement. Now let's look at count if. Count if, these are combination of a count function and if. So a good culture and practice to keep up when working with your Excel data is that whenever you want to use, let's say, such a function, like any of the function that maybe you might have forgotten the syntax and stuff like that, let's do a count if. If you look after just pressing that function before actually trying to insert anything, if you look below here, you can see you need the range and the criteria, right? So let's say we want to count if, let's even insert this range from B1, let our range be B1 to B11, right? That's our range. Now, what is the criteria? We want to count if only something is true. We want to count if, what criteria can we put there? If maybe value is 10, example, you say it brings 2. Now, if we check through our range here, we only have, let me try and put like that so I can see. We only have 2 values from our range, which are actually 10. So it only counts these 2 values. You can walk around and say maybe if value is 3, let's check 3. Let's edit and let's say what if you just want to count if the value is 3. It's still being 2 because what we realize in our range we have 3. Yes, we have 2 cell values which actually bring 3. Okay, yeah, so yeah, that's it. You can just go and try to work around this, and as we continue throughout the course, it will become much easier. Now remember, this is just an introduction to these functions. Don't freak out, things will just get easier. Let's look at the VLOOK. VLOOKUP function. VLOOKUP function is really good, especially when now you're slowly going into some complex data. I have a small data here. Let me try and put all borders here, whereby we have our headings here. You can put them in bold and like that. We have I call them the first column. We have the car, and then we have the model and the engine. So with VLOOKUP, we can say, let's say we want to look up Mercedes and see what engine it has or what model it has. So we'll begin as usual with the sign operator and write VLOOKUP. And then now look carefully down here. We need to put the lookup value, the array, column index, the range lookup. So what do we want to look up? We want to look up the vehicle, which is the Mercedes, right? And then what is our array? Our array, we can select the entire data set. That is our array. Now, what is the column index we want to return? Remember, VLOOKUP always searches from left. So we want to return the column index where the engine is, which should be the column index. This should be 1, 2, 3. So we want to return 3, right? And the last range lookup is optional, which returns true or false. False being the exact match. So it's optional, you can choose to put it or leave it. So let's say we enter and see what it brings. So in this case, it has brought the engine of the Mercedes. And what if you want to edit and say, let's say we want engine for BMW. Now let's just delete and start afresh so we can still look at it. We want to return maybe the model number of the BMW. We'll put the VLOOKUP. The lookup value is the BMW here. And this is your array. Array is the entire range, which is E10 through G13. You remember our last lesson? If you quickly jumped into this lesson, I'd advise you start with the introduction to become easier on how you can name and select ranges. So from there, now we want to return the column. Where is the model? The model is in the second column, so we can say column 2. Wait. What have we haven't finished. So we quickly look at VLOOKUP. I want to look up this value, our array, and select this is our array here, and then we want to return the second column. Now something is not right here, so let us check it. Because it's a model number? VLOOKUP. Let's say we want to look at the BMW. That's the lookup value, and let's try and look at the range through 11 through G13. 11 through G13, and then want to return the second column here. Yes, I think it's because of that. So here if you look at here, we have actually returned the model number, the model of the BMW. Say we also want to, you have a very long list and you want to return the engine of the BMW. We can actually say you want to look up. The lookup value is the car that you're looking up, and then the array is the range where you're looking up, or the data set, and the column index, in this case it will be 3. So in this case we return the engine, the BMW. Yes, now these are some of the few functions and formulas from the many Excel functions we have. But as we continue the course, you realize that they really come in handy when you're working with the big data. Now, I had a small data set here that I wanted to illustrate something. let me quickly just delete this. Let me just delete this. Yes. So here we have a class actually. We have a student's name here on the first column. The second column we have the subjects, and then we have scores of different subjects. Now let us try and maybe see what we have learned. We need to ask ourselves some why questions in order to come up with answers. So we need to find, maybe let's say, the total students from here. And how do you find the total students? We need to count. Do you remember the function that we'll use? Yes, we do remember. It should be count A, because if you just use count only, it only works for numeric values. So where is our data set? We need to count from the first student to the last student. Select our and then enter. We have 9 total students. And what are the average scores? Here we can call upon the average function and try to average the scores you have from the first score in cell C2 through cell C10. This is our average score. The maximum score from the column score you want to get, you can call upon the max function, and then at the same time select. I told you there are so many ways you can select, or you can choose to reference the cells C2 through C10. Yes, and this is the maximum score you have. So if you look around, this is the top score you have. Now there is something I want to introduce here. We need to find the top student, and a top student is the one who has the highest score. Now we have the highest score here, it's 72. Now we want to input a formula here, which it's actually an array, because it's a combined functions here, to return the name of the student who actually scores, whose score is higher. So here we'll use what we call the index match with the index match function. We combine the index function and the match function to come with that result. We could still have used Vlookup, but one disadvantage of Vlookup, it does not search on your left. It can only return columns through your right. You need to remember that. Now let's insert the functions, and then let's go slowly. So we need to start with the index. The index, we need to determine the array of where we want. So the first array is where we want to return it. It's there. Select the entire array, and then let's go to match. This is like nesting a function. Now what do we want to match? It is the score which was in F6. See this score which was in F6 here. And then we can do what we call unique referencing, and then we can do that. Just press F4, which will be fixed reference. We do not want the value of that cell to change. And then the lookup array is here where we are looking at that. And the match type, in this case you can decide to put 1, which will return true. That is when you are doing you do not want an exact match, but here let's say you want an exact match, you can say 0, which actually means false. So here you realize it has returned Dennis. Why? Because Dennis is the one who has the highest score in this particular case. Let's say somebody like Darius here. Let's give Darius a score of a 90 here. So I want you to check on what will happen here. Immediately press enter on Darius, giving Darius the highest score. You see, Darius will automatically become the top student, simply because he he's the one who has the highest score. Yes. So you kindly go and practice and get to understand the index match and the other functions. In the next lesson, we should dive deeper into the functions and try to understand functions. Now, in case we want to find the minimum score from our column, we can use the minimum function here. Minimum function, and then select our range C2 through C10. Right? We get now the minimum score, which should be 40 here. So let's say we had, let's say 20. It will return 20 as the minimum score from our column. Now, this is just an introduction to Excel functions and formulas. But as we continue building up complex reports, things start getting easier. Yeah, so maybe if you're still watching, you can subscribe, like, and share, and also put on suggestions on the functions that you feel like we should take time to discuss, and I'll appreciate the feedback. Thank you guys for watching. Let's meet next time. Bye.